Alright, so I made the Persona power levels chart a while back. And I think that was a success. That inspired you, Fither, to go under the much more challenging undertaking of making a power level chart for the Shin Megami Tensei series.
Yeah, and this was a pain in the ass because Shin Megami Tensei is a lot more complicated. It's a lot of figuring out like kind of lore stuff. It's less feat dependent and more just kind of like who logically should beat who and who does beat who just in the stories of the games.
Mm-hmm. Now, some non-mainline SMT characters have slipped their way in here.
Yeah, this is more a Megami Tensei but not Persona chart because trying to figure out Persona and SMT in the same picture is like a fucking nightmare.
Mm-hmm. With that in mind, let's start from the bottom. Now we're here. F tier, the Normies.
So at F tier, at the very bottom, we have Normies. Just average run-of-the-mill humans that have no particular power and are just kind of alive. Mm-hmm. The thing that's, like, weird about Shin Megami Tensei is that, like, a normie, like, a normal human can be F tier, but then, like, the Megami Tensei 2 guy, who is also just a normal human, can be 10 different tiers in difference. So that's part of what makes this really complicated to try to figure out.
The S&T series is definitely like, humanity has a lot of potential, but goddamn. Now in E tier, we got most demons.
In E tier, we have most demons. This is one of those things where it's like, only the prominent demons, I guess, are above, so most demons will kind of fit into this general lump, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Like, most demons that you can have a random encounter with would probably go into this category.
I get that.
But there's obviously exceptions. So demons, as we all know, have magical power and they're physically way stronger than humans.
Yeah.
Like, and even the weakest demon will probably fucking eviscerate, like, a pretty strong human.
Yeah. What about Pascal the dog? Is that under...
Pascal the dog? He's probably about a D tier, I'd say.
Oh, really?
I mean, he's more towards E than he is, like, D, I guess, if that makes sense. He's kind of stuck in between the two. Like, certain more prominent demons will usually be stuck kind of in between D and E, but it's one of those things where I can't spend all my life trying to figure out who goes in between who, and that's something that I'll probably bring up a lot throughout this chart, is that a lot of these people could probably fit in an in-between, or they maybe belong a spot lower, but they're there on that spot because I guess that's where I'm more kind of comfortable putting them.
Now for D tier.
D tier is a lot of the first Shin Megami Tensei kind of guys. I have them there just to kind of fill in the gap between, like, a bitch demon and something that's, like, a really advanced, powerful threat, like a Metatron or a Beelzebub. Mm-hmm. So we've got SMT1 guys' friends, Ashura and the Archangels. These guys are all probably about the same level of strength. Mm-hmm. Basically the leaders of their own factions that are not, like, the big boys, like the Lucifers or the Metatrons. Mm-hmm. So this is a lot of the general, like, powerful alignment rep kind of guys. Like, you could probably put Lilith in this spot, and like all the Archangels belong in here. So this is like the heavy hitter, like Mastema would probably go in
big
here.
Boss
like demons. Heavy hitter, yeah, big boss demons, heavy hitters that are not like super powerful, but still are pretty strong dudes.
Now we move on to C tier.
C tier is like top shit humans, or not top shit, but like top shit humans that are not quite like real godbuster types, and like power, like the lieutenants more or less of different alignments, affiliations.
Yeah, I get that.
So we've got like Beelzebub and Metatron, who are probably about the same level of strength. Like in Nocturne, you fight them at a pretty similar part of the story, and the Demi-Fiend beats both of them pretty without too much difficulty. Mm-hmm. We can assume Metatron is basically God's kind of right-hand man, Beelzebub is Lucifer's, so it only makes sense that they'd be about the same strength.
Yeah.
So then we have the Shin Megami Tensei 1 guy, who we know is stronger than the Archangels and like Ashura and all of his friends. But I don't know if he'd necessarily be able to fight like Metatron or Beelzebub. He probably would. Like Beelzebub in SMT1 will work with the protagonist, but he kind of gives dialogue that implies that he's kind of above this type of shit. So it's one of those things where it's like, could the SMT1 protagonist beat like Kagutsuchi? I don't fucking know. He never does it. So it's kind of like you gotta go by what he does accomplish. And what he does accomplish is he beats the Archangels and he beats Ashura and he beats all of his friends.
Yes.
So to me, it just makes sense that he would be kind of within like a Metatron kind of area. He could maybe fight like Lucifer and them, but that's like an unknown.
We do kind of have the DLC in Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse where he's on the same level as the other protagonists, but that's a bit iffy.
Yeah, like that's one of those things where it's like, those, at least according to this chart, those guys are all in a different tier of power. Like Aleph is quadruple S, fucking Flynn is double S, Demi-Fiend is A tier. So they're all on different levels of strength, and at the end of the day, in that fight, Steven was just kind of fucking with them. So it's hard to get an actual gauge of power from something like that. And then we have guys with reasons. I have guys with reasons here because they seem like they'd be kinda around that level. Like, a lot of this is based on, like, Nocturne. Because we can assume that a guy with a reason was decently confident in his ability to fight Kagutsuchi, but maybe not strong enough. Honestly, guys with reasons could maybe be a spot higher. Like, the shit, like, everything between the Demi-Fiend, Lucifer, and guys with reasons and Kagutsuchi is all kind of a clusterfuck, but I'll try to explain my reasoning for why they're where they're at. But, like, the way I see it, they've got to be at least stronger than... They've got to be at least at around that level of power to where they could theoretically get into a fight with Kagutsuchi and maybe win. So they're either B or C tier. I'm just more comfortable putting them in C because something about the idea of like Isamu, even with Noah fighting Lucifer when he's really trying, doesn't quite sit right with me.
Yeah. Moving on to B tier.
Okay. Yeah. So B tier, now we're getting into like leaders of alignments, and I'm pretty sure having Lucifer here is going to piss off a lot of people, but Lucifer's actually really tricky to place, because a lot of the time Lucifer really doesn't have that many feats, so to speak. Like, he never really gets into a direct fight with God, he only ever really kind of fights his minions and his lackeys.
Yeah.
And really, the best way we can kind of figure out his power is from, like, boss fights with him. Like, Rhino obviously fights him as a secret boss. The Demi-Fiend, that's, like, his final challenge.
Yeah.
So we can assume he's around their level, if not slightly weaker. And Merkaba, throughout the whole of SMT4, is presented to basically be an equal to Lucifer, so it only makes sense that he would be there. Then we have Nakajima, and Nakajima is the first Megami Tensei protagonist, and he beats Lucifer. So I'd say he's got to be at least around his level. Like, one of the problems that I had when kind of making this list was, it's an issue of where do I put guys in the tier list if they definitively did beat, like, Lucifer? Are they stronger, or do they kind of belong in the same tier?
I guess it depends on the struggle.
Yeah, like, so I put Nakajima in B just to be safe. Like, I don't see Nakajima being the type of guy who can necessarily fuck with Kagutsuchi or Brahmin. He's just a normal dude. But, like, Megami Tensei, like I said, is very inconsistent about what a normal dude is capable of. So just to be safe, I've put him in B. I think that's a good spot for him.
Alright.
And then we've got the Demiurge. I just kind of got him because I figured I'd get comments about it. And the Demiurge kind of helps us figure out how strong Metatron is and how strong Lucifer is. Because in SMT4, Lucifer is very impressed by Flynn's ability to beat the Demiurge. And the way the Demiurge talks, he seems like he's not afraid of Lucifer. Like, he's willing to tango with the guy.
Oh.
Like, he doesn't give the same, like, oh, God will smite thee type of shit. He's like, up to your old fucking tricks again, are you, Lucifer? So we can assume from that he's not afraid to fight the guy. And also in Strange Journey, Demiurge casually beats Metatron, who at that point in the story has inherited kind of like a fraction of God's power, because God is believed to have been badly damaged by Memelef. Like, you'll see up later, I have damaged YHVH because that helps me explain a lot of things a lot easier.
Alright.
So that's why I've got those guys.
I get the Demiurge being there. Even though, like, one of the feats I just can consider, like, maybe he's just, like, talking because he knows there's other people there pick up after him.
It could be. I don't know. Like, dialogue is almost never something you should really go by. I would rather see them fight, but the implication is that they're roughly the same. Like, Lucifer would have liked Flynn's help to fight that guy.
Yeah. Next up, we have A tier, and
A tier is probably one of the more, like, controversial tiers, I guess. At least for me, it was very difficult to figure out a lot of these guys.
Alright, so who's in A tier?
So the Demi-Fiend could honestly belong in B, but I have him in A just to be safe. Like, him and Kagutsuchi are both kind of weird, because Lucifer is the final boss, but the way I see it, Kagutsuchi is probably stronger than Lucifer, because Kagutsuchi is an aspect of God that created its own universe. And the way Lucifer Lucifer doesn't seem like he would like to fight Kagutsuchi, but that might just be Lucifer being his slimy self.
Yeah.
Because Lucifer's lazy. He would always rather get a human to do his bidding.
Yes.
And the Demi-Fiend obviously beats Lucifer, who we can assume is actually really trying in that fight, and it's a pretty even battle. Lucifer was pretty confident in his ability that him and his demon army and the Demi-Fiend could go fight God, but the way I see it, he's probably underestimating how strong God is, or maybe he's just got too much confidence in the Demi-Fiend. So that's why I have him in A, because Lucifer seems pretty confident, but I just don't see the Demi-Fiend being in, an S-tier type guy just because of the kind of shit that, is in S-tier and above.
Alright.
So then we've got Rhino, and Rhino also fights Lucifer and also beats him. And in Nocturne Maniacs, the Demi-Fiend and Rhino are basically completely even, and at one point, Goto is like, please don't kill the Demi-Fiend. Because the implication is that Rhino, at that point in the story, which is towards the end of the Labyrinth of Amala, could have probably mollywopped him. So the way I see it, if he's reached the true demon ending, he's probably about that strong.
Yeah.
And that also goes for if you want to put Dante in here. Dante is basically Rhino, mechanically, in terms of what he is in the story. So logically, he's got to be about that strong. And then we have Kagutsuchi, who, obviously gets beaten by the Demi-Fiend. So they belong probably in the same tier. You could probably put Kagutsuchi and Brahmin in, a tier higher. I just feel more comfortable putting them here, because the guys here and above, I consider, can fight God type guys, and I don't see the Demi-Fiend or Rhino being able to fight God.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. Brahmin is basically, I have him there because I think they're pretty similar entities, him and Kagutsuchi. They're capable of pretty similar kind of feats. They're both last bosses, and they're both seemingly aspects of God, so I'd assume they're about the same strength.
Yeah. Now in S tier...
This part's gonna piss people off. So I have Nanashi's friends, and that's Navarre. The way I see it, that's all of Nanashi's friends kind of working together. And maybe that's not fair, but just for power arguments, it's a lot easier to just say Nanashi's friends. Then we have Bunny from Devil Survivor 2, Canopus, who you can kind of replace with Polaris, and then Seraph.
Alright, I'm not sure if I'm down with Nanashi's friends occupying this tier.
Okay, so they could probably be a spot lower, but the way I see it is you need to be at least within 2 tiers of something to really fuck with it, right?
Yeah.
The Demi-Fiend probably can't fuck with, even a damaged form of God, because the implication seems to be that the Demi-Fiend kind of loses his fight. Because in Digital Devil Saga, whatever you fought that was this Demi-Fiend replica or illusion seemed to be wandering the universe for no particular reason, and why would he be doing that if he wasn't successful in his mission, right? So that's why I've got Nanashi's friends there, is because I'm just going based on what happens in the games, and what happens in the games is that Nanashi's friends are capable of, to some extent, fighting God, but that the thing that's tricky about trying to figure that out is that there's 2 versions of that battle. One where it's Nanashi and Flynn and all of his gay friends and all of the samurai. Yeah. And the other version is Nanashi and Satan versus God.
Nanashi, Satan, Flynn, and...
Yeah,
Flynn's one friend.
And one friend.
Right. Who's been enhanced by Dogda.
There's definitely an argument that can be made that these guys belong in A. I'm just more comfortable putting them where they're at. You can just kind of treat them as every single one of those guys, even though that's probably not fair, but that's all of those guys working together. Individually, they're probably only, B tier, if that.
Even then, I'd feel more confident. I feel weird putting them this high above Merkaba and Lucifer.
Yeah. Either Merkaba and Lucifer could go a tier higher, it's just A tier is really cluttered. So yeah, that would probably make more sense if it's A tier is Lucifer and Merkaba and all of those guys, and probably Nanashi's friends as well could probably belong there. But A tier is just kind of cluttered.
Yeah.
The difference between a guy who's in C tier and B tier really isn't that big of a difference. The A, B, C, and S tier are all kinda within the same realm. It's just each one is that slight tick above.
I don't know. I feel like Flynn and Nashi really carrying their friends.
Yeah, they are. That's why they're in SS. Like, it wouldn't make any fucking sense whatsoever to have them in, like, S tier. Yeah. People, like, really either really overestimate Bunny or really underrate him. Mm-hmm. So, Bunny and his gang fight, like, extraterrestrial invaders that threaten the whole planet. So that on its own is, like, a planetary level threat. Mm-hmm. Like, Polaris is literally destroying the planet.
Yes.
So that's at least a, like, Brahmin or Kagutsuchi level threat, because Brahmin was doing the same thing. He was sucking up the planet. Mm-hmm. But the difference to me is that Bunny fights a thing that is, like an aspect of the universe that is in charge of something. Like, Polaris is kind of maintains data in the universe, and to me, that's a step above, like, something that can destroy a planet.
Yeah.
And Canopus is kind of a similar entity. Canopus is basically like a weird crash debugger for the universe. When something goes really wrong, it shows up and starts wreaking havoc. So you could probably make the argument that, like, Canopus would belong in, like, A tier and maybe... But, like, the A tier is getting cluttered. So just for, like, where I think they belong, I'm happy with them being in S. Because of what they are and, by extension, what Bunny fights.
Alright. And Seraph, I feel, is kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, Seraph is, like, basically the only Digital Devil Saga rep. The rest of them would probably be, like, B or C tier level guys. I just have Seraph there because, like, Seraph beats Brahmin, and then becomes, like, some weird higher entity through the assistance of Schrodinger and beating Brahmin.
Yeah.
So, she could maybe go in A tier. I'd say she's about Demi-Fiend-ish levels, but she, like, the weird mystical process she undergoes makes me think that she's probably a little bit stronger. Plus, she's two people put together, and by Dragon Ball rules, fusion is, like, pretty good.
Yeah, she could do galactic donuts.
Okay, so now we've got, like, actual possible threats to God tier. We got Vishnu Flynn, who is, like, a form of Krishna, Satan, Flynn, and Nanashi. Mm-hmm. Satan is there because he's probably the second most powerful thing in the entire universe. Like, he works directly under God. Metatron is usually presented as being God's right-hand man, but it's actually Satan. Like, to bring up Digital Devil Saga, Seraph and the gang fight and defeat Satan, so that's also part of why they're in S. Because only going by, like, what makes sense, if they're able to even fuck with Satan, they've got to be within the same kind of range as him.
Yeah.
And the only other time that, like, Satan as that has really lost to somebody was Aleph, who's a fucking monstrosity.
Alright.
So the way I see it, he's got to be at least a viable threat. And this guy's kind of like a weird amalgamation of the Shin Megami Tensei 2 Satan and Apocalypse Satan.
Yeah.
So then we've got Vishnu Flynn. And Vishnu Flynn seemed pretty confident in his ability to fight God. Like, the plan was he was going to make Flynn his Godslayer, hatch the cosmic egg, or beat God and then hatch the cosmic egg, whichever the process went. So that to me implies that he's pretty confident in his ability to fight that guy. Mm-hmm. Like, Krishna is a very smart and knowledgeable dude. He knows about the Axiom, and there's, like, 5 demons in the whole universe that know about the fucking Axiom? Like, Dagda's one of them. Steven knows what the Axiom is, and that's, like, it. It's like him, Krishna, and Dagda. So he's obviously got at least some kind of understanding of how strong God should be. Plus, you know, he's got power from Flynn, so automatically he's got to be at least as strong as Flynn. If it's him, if it's Krishna and Flynn working together. So then we've got the SMT4 boys, Nanashi and Flynn. Flynn obviously beats both Lucifer and Merkabah, so that by its own makes him, like, at least an A tier, but the shit he accomplishes in Apocalypse definitely puts him at least near Nanashi's level, because he fights and beats Krishna, who we can assume is probably in his base form, like an S tier type guy, and then he goes and he fights God, and he beats, like, and he helps to defeat God.
The implication so that being that it was an equal effort from his party and Nanashi's party.
Yeah, and of course he's obviously got to be the strongest guy in that group.
Yeah.
So, like, that makes sense to me. The idea that Flynn and Nanashi and, like, whatever weird combination happens in the different endings should probably be enough to, like, fight God. Yes. Nanashi's kind of in the same boat just because of what he accomplishes. He fights and beats God, but it's with the assistance of a lot of different help and, like, a weird method. Like, the guys in Quadruple S just beat him. They just beat him into the ground, but Nanashi relies more on, like, kind of a Persona-esque strategy of making, like, damaging God's ego, so to speak, and making him kind of realize his own faults as a ruler and break that shell of omnipotence that kind of surrounds him.
Alright.
These are some complicated boys that need some explaining. So, this is Abel at the end of the game after he's become the King of Bel. And the King of Bel, this is just a lore fact, was the most powerful demon. So by default, that automatically makes him, like every demon just listened to him. So by default, he's gotta be stronger than basically any demon. I don't know if that would necessarily apply to, like, a Lucifer type. But here's the thing that has me convinced, is that it's a part of the lore that God was kind of low-key spooked by Bel, and so, by the King of Bel, so he went and personally fought him and beat him. He's got the power of all these different Bel demons who are, like, nothing to be fucked with. Beelzebub is just, like, a part of him. The King of Bel was so powerful, and he ruled the universe, or the world, rather, until God stepped in and became, like, the prominent, most powerful entity, and personally fought the King of Bel, which, like, never happens, and beat him and scattered him into a bunch of pieces. So the way I see it, if he considered him to be that big of a problem, he's gotta be at least able to fight him in a damaged state.
Yeah.
So that's why I have him there. Meme Aleph and Space Marine are fun to try to explain.
I'm waiting.
So I'll start with Meme Aleph, because Space Marine goes directly into that. Meme Aleph and the other mothers beat God in a fight. Like, that is just something that they say happens, is that they fought back God and his forces and just got them out of the Schwarzfeld. And the implication is that they beat God so bad that he got damaged and, like, was splittered off into different pieces. Like, that's why Metatron is in Strange Journey trying to find, like, other pieces of God to try to reunite that power. So she's obviously gotta be at least as strong as him. I don't have her in quadruple S, just because it seems like she needed the help of all the other mothers and probably a lot of Schwarzfeld demons to beat him. So she doesn't, like, solo God, but she's close.
Alright.
And then Space Marine is there because he beats Memelef. So no matter how you look at it, he beat the thing that beat God and damaged him.
Despite being guy with gun.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sometimes Shin Megami Tensei just doesn't make sense. Like, by all logic, this guy should just be an SMT1 level, like, type guy. But he's not. Like, he's just not. He's a triple S threat. So, you could probably maybe put him a spot below. I'm happy where he's at. Like, I don't want to put him a step above Memelef. I feel like they're pretty even.
Even though they should not be even at all.
Even though they should not be. By all logic, this guy should suck. But he just
there
doesn't.
Should be something like I did with the Power of Friendship. And have there be gameplay mechanics in 5S tier.
Yeah, that would probably make sense.
Then we could put Space Marine in the C tier where he belongs.
He so is not C tier. Because he beats Metatron. He just beats him. But yeah, Space Marine is one of those things where it's like, he doesn't make any sense, but he kind of does. So, like, out of obligation, I have to put him there. Because that's what he does. He beats Memelef. And it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, if he never got the opportunity to even beat her, would we have put him in D tier? Like, I don't fucking know. Could SNT1 guy have fought damaged YHVH? I don't fucking know. He never does it. So it's like, you just kind of got to use your better judgment on this kind of shit and just, like, go by what happens in the game.
Alright. And now we got damage.
Okay, so I had damage God here. Originally it was just God, but it was very difficult to try to explain the difference between God in his prime and God that's, like, hurt. Flynn and Nanashi probably couldn't have beaten God unless they had damaged his psyche like that. Like, they didn't. They weren't hurting that guy until they, like, talked him into becoming a weaker entity. And then they were able to beat him with their combined efforts. And Damage God is, like, probably still a stronger thing than Satan, but not as strong as he used to be. So that's why I have him there, because it's just easier to explain the idea that Memelef is probably as strong as God when he's hurt, and so is, like, Abel. And that, like, Flynn and Nanashi could beat God when he's hurt, but maybe not fuck with him when he's at his full power.
I still can't get over the Space Marine being here.
Yeah, I know, he doesn't belong, but he has to be there.
Like, I can't see, like, him going up to Damage God with his fucking dumb gun. And just shooting him.
He would probably just do it, though.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens in, like, Quadruple S. Okay, so Quadruple S, God, pretty self-explanatory. It's very consistent that he's the strongest, biggest, baddest motherfucker in the universe. Every angel takes orders from him. Most demons would prefer not to fuck with him. It takes like a Krishna level mastermind to really work up a plan to where he can kind of fuck with him. And then we have the two lunatics here. Aleph and the guy whose name I don't know, so I just call him Megami Tensei 2 guy, who just beat God. Like, they just beat him.
Awesome.
Yeah, Aleph literally straight up just punches and kicks him and shoots him until he dies. And Megami Tensei 2 guy does the same thing. And he doesn't rely on damaging his psyche or hurting his feelings or holding hands. They just kill him. So they've gotta be, like, Shin Megami Tensei doesn't make any fucking sense.
I'm telling you.
It doesn't.
5S tier gameplay things.
You know what it should be called is, like, opportunity. Like, if they don't have the opportunity to fight something, then we have no way to conclusively figure out how strong they would be.
I can accept that a bit more than just saying the fact that it's a video game.
Like, if I were to add, like, a Mimi kind of bullshit thing, in quintuple S tier, it would be opportunities to fight things.
Yeah.
And then at the very top, we have Steven and the Axiom. The Axiom I have a whole video about that's 20 minutes where I explain what the fuck that thing is. But the Axiom is the thing that is the step above God and controls, like, the non-physical part of the universe. It's stated pretty frequently in Apocalypse that the Axiom and God don't get along at all and that they hate each other, and that the Axiom will make messiahs in the effort to try to fuck with that guy. Because he hates him.
And Steven Universe here?
Steven Universe has made contact with the Axiom and as a result has become a being that is just infinitely above our understanding. Like, the man can attack with singularities and it takes 4 SMT protagonists, one of them being the strongest, craziest motherfucker ever, to amuse him. Like, they don't even beat the guy. He just thinks, okay, that's enough. And sits back down in his chair. Nothing can fuck with Steven. He just doesn't fight God because it's like, it doesn't really concern him. Like, it does, but it's in the same way that having to go drop off something at the post office kind of concerns you. So that's the completely nonsensical. This one makes less sense and requires a lot more explaining than your power chart, but that's just because Shin Megami Tensei is a bigger clusterfuck.
They definitely...
And there's just more games.
They definitely weren't meant to interact with each other.
No, like, trying to figure out a Persona and SMT power chart is, like, actually a fool's effort.
We have, like, half of one thing to go on, and that's, I believe, some Devil Summoner characters appear in the earlier Persona games.
Yeah, the protagonist from SMT If is a semi-regular character in Persona 1 and 2. She's a student in Persona 1, and she's actually the chick that works at the detective agency in Persona 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, like, a lot of protagonists that I don't have on here, mostly because I've never finished their games, and also because a lot of them are, like, C, B tier, so there's not really much sense in cluttering it up.
Like, for all we know, the protagonist from Shin Megami Tensei 9 is above Steven.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, I don't
It was on
know
the
shit.
Xbox. Who the fuck knows? I hate how high Space Marine is.
I do too. Like, all common sense dictates he shouldn't be there. But based on what he just does and makes happen, like, at most, he's gotta be an SS tier. Or at the very least, I mean.
Say you were to add opportunity to the list.
Yeah.
And now, like, big ol' gameplay feats are out the window. How much of this is different? Not
much, honestly. Like, you gotta go by who beats who a lot of the time. Because that's the only thing that
we have
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, the lore in Shin Megami Tensei is not super consistent. Like, it is, but it's not one of those kinds of series that will ever, like, give the Demi-Fiend a power level or something. Like, you just gotta go by what kind of makes sense, who beats who, and, like, where they stand kind of in their structure in the universe.
A lot of this is going to hurt a lot of people.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I'm sure the comment section will be, like, a war zone.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure it'll be a lot of, well, you forgot the guy from Last Bible.
Where's Vincent?
Where's Vincent?
I keep looking at Space Marine and getting mad.
I know.
Because I can't imagine going up against anything but, like, the things he actually fought. And even then, I only accept he fought those things because gameplay.
Like, we could live in a timeline where SMT1 guy and fucking Strange Journey guy are just switched. And that's an enormous magnitude difference of power.
Yeah.
And it's all just who they fight.
Yeah.
Really.
We had different philosophies when making our power level charts.
Yeah, like, yours makes more sense. I had very few, like, problems. I was more curious about some of your placements. This one you could pick apart and be like, this is fucked. But it's really the best you can do. Or the best I can do, at least.